Determination Podcast, part of the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network, and sponsored by Total Sports Enterprises. I'm your host, Stryker. The Steelers don't know who their starting quarterback will be this season, but oddly enough, our division rivals, the Cleveland Browns, have no idea who their starting quarterback is going to be either, but for completely different reasons. Whereas we're trying out 4 guys, probably rotating 3 guys to figure out who's going to be our starter. Cleveland went out, and after a sham investigation into Deshaun Watson and his 22 allegations of sexual misconduct with masseuses that I assume would have been done by Robert Kraft with a wink and a knowing smile, Watson was giving a $230 million fully guaranteed contract. Easily one of the best quarterbacks available, also the one with the most baggage. Cleveland gave up a first and a 4th round draft pick this year, a first and a 3rd round draft pick next year, and a first and a 4th round draft pick in 24 to receive Watson and a 6th rounder in 2024. Now that is a ton of picks and a ton of draft capital to acquire one player by also giving them that fully guaranteed $230 million contract. You think they would have done a little bit more work on this guy. I mean, now as allegations 23 and 24 are coming in, and after an actual investigation by actual reporters from the New York Times, from Sports Illustrated, the NFL can now no longer ignore Watson's pattern of sexual misconduct with massage profession. And his playing football this year, and possibly even next year, is now in doubt. I mean, I just got a tweet from the Department of Weights and Measurements. From what I'm reading here, from this point forward, 24 will now be referred to as a Watson. It's official. Mark it down. Way to go, Watson. We're not talking about Ben's 2 allegations. We're talking about Watson's 24 allegations. Insane. Absolutely insane and hypocritical by an organization that did 0 investigation. Hey, Deshaun, did you do it? No. End of investigation. Here's your money. It's fully guaranteed. Idiots. Well, the Browns did work his contract to give him basically $1 million base salary. And people want to point to that as being the primary reason to avoid Watson having to pay the most amount of money for being suspended, maybe even his first year. And I just think that is complete bunk. I mean, I got caught up with it initially when I first heard about it. I'm like, hey, that should be illegal. They shouldn't be able to give him a $1 million salary so he can avoid penalty. But that is what is done with each and every major contract in the NFL. When you're getting a huge signing bonus, your salary is going to be next to 0. It's going to be right around $1 million. Happened to Watt last year, happened to Watson this year, and it's just because the signing bonus is so high, that is essentially your salary. I mean, he got a $44 million signing bonus, so that's spread out over 5 years. So, of course, he had to have a low salary this year just to keep his cap value low, and it has his cap value around $10 million this year, which is great for the Browns, great for Watson because he gets $44 million while only showing $10 million on the books. But the problem with the Browns now is they're on the hook for $230 million guaranteed. And this thing is just not going to play out well. Now, I knew Baker Mayfield was playing on his 5th-year option with his $18 million fully guaranteed contract. And that puts the Browns and Baker in uneasy territory. Baker wanted a long-term contract to reward him for leading the Browns to the playoffs for the first time in 20 years and giving them their first playoff victory against their rival, the most hated team in Cleveland, the Pittsburgh Steelers, in a generation, in 25 years. But instead of supporting their most decorated quarterback in a generation, they chose to diminish Baker's accomplishments by picking up Watson and all of his 24 bags. So now Baker's in a position where he may not want to play due to how he was treated. But is that $18 million? It's fully guaranteed. They can't get rid of him. The Browns would like to trade him because that's the only way they can get that $18 million contract off of their books. Problem is they have no leverage anymore because the league knows Baker's upset. The league knows the Browns screwed Baker and played it completely poorly by going out and picking up Watson because now Baker doesn't feel like the Browns believe in him. And they don't. They picked up Watson. So he doesn't want to play for them anymore. He's done giving away his blood, sweat, and tears for that organization that didn't treat his injuries seriously last year when he was injured. That's the type of thing that makes a quarterback never want to play for you again. So their only option moving forward, if they can't get that trade to happen, they cut him. But if they cut him, they're going to still have that $18 million on their salary cap, and that hit will be there this year. And as I stated in earlier podcasts this year, Baker will not play a down for the Browns. And it looks like I was dead right. Baker didn't show up to OTAs. And then Baker was excused from mandatory training camp. So you don't excuse a player from mandatory minicamp when your leading quarterback is not able to play during allegations unless you're looking to move that quarterback. He is not going to be on the team next year. There's no way he's going to play another down for the Browns. But I'm just going to see if is he going to get cut or is he going to get traded. I'm hoping he gets cut because I'd love to see the Browns take another hit because only Charlie Brown is less adept at football than the Cleveland Browns. But instead of blaming it on Lucy for the lack of trust in holding a football, the Browns seem to be pulling their own football away from themselves every time they attempt to kick. And I love watching each and every second of it. The mistake by the lake continues to make mistakes. And I revel in that in another generation before Browns fans can have a reason to cheer again for another playoff victory. So now instead of Deshaun Watson or Baker Mayfield as this year's quarterback, we have to start wondering, will it be the free agent pickup Jacoby Brissett, Brisket, like we like to call him here at Steeler Nation, or our very own Josh Dobbs? Because it just might take someone with a degree in rocket science to right their spaceship to get it going in the right direction for this 2022 season. So good luck to you, Brownie fans. We're going to be loving each and every time we play you because I think our team, even though we don't know who our starting quarterback is yet, has a good chance of it's time for questions from Steeler Nation. Come on over to SteelerNation.com where we have a football thread up in the football forum. Join, it is free to join. We take our questions directly from the football forum. First question coming from Cooley Man asks, you have a lot of good collection of Steeler things behind me during the vidcasts. What is my favorite piece of Steeler memorabilia? I mean, I love my helmets. The helmets were always like the biggest thing that I first acquired that I really loved. So over here is the old leather helmet that I got to grab. Then I'm going to move my mic out of the way a little bit. This is the numbered helmets that the Steelers then wore for a bit. This one being John Henry Johnson's number, good old 35, Hall of Famer John Henry Johnson. Then the old yellow helmets when we first put the Steel logo on the side of the helmet when the Steelers petitioned U.S. Steel to be able to have that logo. They slapped it on one side of the helmet, and then they changed it from Steel to Steelers, furthering the trademark and continuing the trademark slightly differently. Though I do love my helmets. I've got a quick thing to point. I have my football behind me in the glass case. That's a football that I got Rod Woodson to sign directly for me when I used to run the Ravens training camp interactive area for the kids. And I ran that in 2000 and 2021 and part of 2000, 2001 and part of 02. But I waited for after practice, was going up through the line in 2001, was standing there, and Ray Lewis looks at me with the ball, and he goes, "Do you want me to sign that?" And I'm like, who am I going to tell Ray Lewis he can't sign my football? He just killed two guys. Of course you can sign my football, Ray Lewis, though I wanted, Rod Woodson to sign it. He signed it first, got back in the line. I'm like, "Rod, can you sign my ball?" And he went past me, and I got in front of him again, and I said, "Don't hold it against me. I'm from Pittsburgh." And he came over to me. He signed it, and I said, "Thank you so much." So now I have this ball is technically signed by Rod Woodson and by Ray Lewis back when they were both playing for the Ravens in that year, and actually in the 2001 year after they won the Super Bowl in 2000. Another couple pieces. Here are my favorite pieces that I have. This right here is actual turf from Heinz Field when I got to go down on the field for the terrible towel wave. I absconded with a little bit of grass, and I stuck it in a bottle, and I kept it for, just for poops and ha-has. But, it's having a piece of the turf here with me, and I do like that. But this is one of my all-time favorite pieces. This game, I went to this game. This was the big blowout game against the Cleveland Browns on Christmas Eve in the Super Bowl year, which I believe was 2005, when James Harrison body slammed a Cleveland Brown fan. The caption on here is Steelers versus Brown tickets, $200, food, $20, beer, $45, getting blown out by the Steelers and having James Harrison slam one of your fans. Priceless. So this is probably one of my all-time favorite pieces to have. Just because it means a little bit to me. I had a lot of good friends. My wife and her best friend and my best friend at the time were all there, really enjoying that game and that day. So it means a lot to me, especially when that occurred. And then the great player that James Harrison eventually became as well. Super cool stuff right there. Next question. Where would I rank Tomlin among the current NFL head coaches? The only one I put him behind, honestly, is Belichick. I mean, you got to go by Super Bowl wins. He's there, but he's a definite top 5 coach. I mean, I see rankings come out every year. This year, Steeler Nation, if you, for some reason, since you didn't understand how good of a job he did in 2019 and how good of a job he did managing a failing Ben Roethlisberger not being able to throw a football past 10 yards downfield in the center of the field for the past 2 seasons, you're missing it. The guy is a hell of a coach. And this year he picked up a lot of new pieces. I'm really excited to see how he manages these new coaching elements with you got Austin as the new defensive coordinator. You got Flores as well coming on the defensive side to be able to help out. I'm really excited to see how all the coaching staff is going to react and play this year and get this team up and ready to play and help out their quarterback to win games, especially because we're going to need the defense to play at a high level. Next question. What team do I dislike the most in the NFL? Well, it used to be New England when Brady played for them. Then it was Tampa Bay when New England played for them, but not, we don't really play Tampa Bay. But now I have to say it's Cincinnati. Not Cincinnati. It's the Cleveland Browns. It was Cincinnati when Cincinnati had Burfict and when Cincinnati had Pac-Man, and those guys were just looking to hurt players. They weren't playing football. They were playing backyard brawl. I'm going to take this guy out on this play, which is the worst kind of football you can ever watch. Cincinnati. So then when Cincinnati stopped doing that and they lost those guys, they started playing more effectively. I have a little bit more respect for them now. They're a good team now. Right now, I hate the Browns. absolutely hate the Browns again. Went back to there, all from the Myles Garrett stuff and hitting Rudolph in the head with his own helmet, and then lying, saying Rudolph said things that he didn't say. That type of stuff, trying to intentionally hurt Pittsburgh Steelers players, is the reason why I hate teams. So right now it's the Cleveland Browns. I've never hated the Baltimore Ravens. Know a lot of people in the organization, respected their players. Their players always played tough. They always hated us. We always hated them, but there was respect. But I hate their fans. I hate Baltimore fans more than any fan in the NFL. But great question. So if my most hated team was playing the last week of the season and a win by them would end up giving the Steelers a playoff spot, would a part of me still want to see them lose? Never. I've been in this situation before, and I always root vehemently for whatever scenario puts the Steelers in the playoffs. Doesn't matter how badly I hate you. I will root for you in that situation. Last question from Cooley Man. Does Najee have the stuff to eventually join Franco and Jerome in the argument for best Steeler running back ever? I'd say yes. I'd say for a rookie season, he's put up the best rookie season ever by a Pittsburgh Steeler running back. Most yardage by a running back, most receptions by a Steeler rookie for a rookie season. Those are two huge stats. So moving forward, I mean, this guy's already at a higher level than like Le'Veon Bell was joining us. And Le'Veon Bell was putting up Brown numbers for like 170 yards a game. He was averaging there at a certain point with receiving and running. So it is like insane amounts. So I can see Najee becoming that kind of player if he gets utilized a little bit more space, having these blockers help him out a little bit more and getting these extra yardage instead of doing everything himself like he did last year. Would be fun to see, but it's still very early. I'd love to see him make that progression, stay on the team long enough to do so. But yes, I can definitely see the trajectory with the way he played last year. If he can continue that, guy's going to be a hell of a player in this league. And he's going to make us look like the smartest people ever for picking up a running back in the first round, Mel Kiper. Mad Insomniac. Oh, Guardian cap helmets. Yay or nay? They look ridiculous, but lower impact by 10%. I'm yay, especially for practice, OTAs, minicamp, training camp. Throw them on, and they're actually 20% effective when both parties are wearing the helmet. So the person you're hitting and you've got one of those big, great Gazoo helmets on, you're going to be good. So good old dark helmet out there hitting it for the preseason. Nobody's going to be getting concussions, hopefully. Fingers crossed. Anything that can help out players a little bit extra, but I guess right when we start hitting games, we're going to start removing those helmets from the helmet. Next question from Mad Insomniac. Is it a slight if they don't give Pickett a fair shot to win the starter role? Feels like the Steelers' motto with young quarterbacks in the past has been for them to wait their turn. Unless Mitch and Rudolph get hurt or utterly blow out there, we'll have little hope to see Pickett win the job outright. Is that the right philosophy still? I don't know if you say right philosophy, but it seems to be the Steeler way. I think the competition is still open. And we'll find out if they're going to start rotating quarterbacks here when training camp starts in July. But Trubisky is making it really hard for anyone to steal first-team reps from what we're starting to hear from people on the ground in OTAs and minicamp. Because he's just been incredibly consistent. And when you're incredibly consistent, that keeps you in the number one seat because you're not making mistakes to knock you down to not get reps. So we'll have to see how it works out, but like I'm saying in training camp, to see if it's a fully open competition. But like I'm saying, I still think Trubisky is going to be the starter day one. Also, what's the chances of 7th rounder pushing Rudolph off the roster, I guess? I mentioned this is a possibility back when Olodikin was drafted. If he plays really well at training camp, you're going to get in a situation where you're going to start talking trade value. I said if Pickett and Olodekin were playing well, now you got to move somebody. Trubisky, I'd say you don't move him at all because he's paid both to be a starting quarterback and he also takes paid to be a backup quarterback with backup quarterback pay. And if he goes down, he can immediately thrust into the role. So that leaves Mason Rudolph as odd man out. And I'm hoping he plays well enough like Dobbs did that one year where we are able to trade him for some draft value. And then keep the other three quarterbacks if Olodekin shows he can play. We'll have to wait to see how that works out, but that would be the person that I would move if Olodekin can play. I think Rudolph has the toughest job of staying on this roster if Olodekin shows he can play in the league. Kate Stilley, have I heard anything regarding interest in the Steelers may have had in signing Akeem Nicks? Probably a coincidence, but Tampa Bay swooped in and signed him, I believe, the day before Tuitt announced his retirement. Well, for me, I didn't hear anything about the Steelers wanting to acquire Hicks, and no one knew that Tuitt was going to retire. I mean, there were zero rumors, and the Steelers still haven't signed a defensive end. I mean, you think that if they knew that Tuitt was going to retire, they would have had another guy lined up. I mean, they've already done some like workouts with some defensive players, but they haven't brought anybody in yet. And Ndamukong Suh's still out there. I mean, we're still talking about some of these players still out there, but Steelers might be happy with who they have, and it's just the way the cookie crumbled, but I don't think Hicks was ever in the Steelers' plans. Last question coming from the Mighty Guru. Apparently, Kevin Dotson and Green are battling for the left guard spot. Will Dotson ever get his poop together? Dotson will start this year, Guru. He's already got 2 years in the league, 2 years of experience in the NFL, 1 full year starting experience at left guard, whereas Green now has to learn another position, although he played it in college. He's been a NFL center. So now he's got to learn a new NFL position. I think it's going to be a hard press to unseat Dotson, especially if Dotson is healthy and he's going to be healthier this year. I think he's going to lock down that spot. So plus Dotson's a card-carrying member of Steeler Nation and has been since birth. So I'm going to pick him to lock down that left guard spot. Steeler Nation, be sure to check out our sponsors at TSEshop.com or follow Total Sports Enterprises over on their Twitter at Total Sports ENT, where they're giving away signed jerseys every week. So be a part of it. Follow them, retweet them, and win yourself a signed jersey. All thanks to our sponsors, Total Sports Enterprises. Watch our vidcast live, 7 o'clock. Be sure to sign up on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Steeler Nation, to be the first to know when our vidcasts are popping up live, so you can be on there. Questions, comments, I take them live all the time on that show because it is your podcast, Steeler Nation. Check out great Pittsburgh sports and Western Pennsylvania content at dkpittsburghsports.com and follow the great podcasts in the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network at DKPS Podcasts over on Twitter. Read our great Pittsburgh Steeler-focused articles at SteelerNation.com. Tweet us at Steeler Nation. Instagram us at SteelerNation.com. Follow the podcast on Twitter at _SN Podcast. And follow me, your host, Stryker, Steeler Nation Stryker, on Instagram, on Twitter, and now on TikTok at SN Stryker. Thanks for joining us for the Steeler Nation podcast, sponsored by Total Sports Enterprises, part of the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. I am your host, G. Stryker, rooting along with you as always. Go Steelers!